끝없이 쏟아지는 포토스팟. 휴대폰 한 대로 감당할 수 있겠니?
Coming up on Arirang News, President Yoon says North Korea's nuclear and missile development is an existential threat to all. His remarks came during the East Asia Summit in Jakarta, where he stressed heavier responsibility for the UNSC's permanent members to abide by sanctions resolutions on the regime. Also in Jakarta, President Yoon meets with China's Premier Li Chang as Chinese President Xi Jinping decided not to attend the ASEAN summit this year. There, President Yoon has called on Beijing to play a stronger role in deterring North Korea's nuclear threat. North Korean leader Kim Jong-un's possible visit to Russia to meet Putin, which could take place as early as next week, may be made using an unexpected route rather than by an armored train, according to South Korea's intel agency. Good evening. It's 9 p.m. here in Seoul. Thank you for joining us on Arirang News. We begin with South Korean President Yoon in Jakarta. During the East Asia Summit, President Yoon said North Korea's nuclear and missile development poses an existential threat to all. He stressed heavier responsibility lies with UNSC permanent members for sanctions on the regime. Our correspondent Oh Soo-young starts us off from the Indonesian capital.
President Yoon has called for global solidarity amid mounting threats to regional and human security by subversive forces amid geopolitical tensions surrounding North Korea, Russia, and in the South China Sea. Speaking at the East Asia Summit in Jakarta on Thursday, attended by some 18 regional countries, including the Association of Southeast Asian Nations, the US, Japan, China, and Russia, Yoon laid out Seoul's position on regional and global crisis. On North Korea's nuclear and missile development, the South Korean leader said North Korea's weapons program not only violates United Nations resolutions, but poses an existential and direct threat to all countries attending the summit. He raised the need to block Pyongyang's illicit fundraising activities, which include cryptocurrency theft and illegal transshipment. Amid speculation that Russia and North Korea may strike up an arms deal, Yoon said member states of the Security Council have an even heavier duty of implementing UN sanctions on the regime. Also, Yoon touched on maritime tensions in the Indo-Pacific region, saying attempts to unilaterally change the status quo by force are unacceptable. He emphasized the need to establish a rules-based maritime order in the South China Sea, a key trade route where 21% of global trade and a third of crude supplies pass through. Seoul plans to expand maritime security cooperation with the ASEAN and protect freedom of navigation. The South Korean leader further raised concerns about the ongoing war in Ukraine, calling Russia's invasion a clear violation of international law. He also expressed concern over the ongoing violence in Myanmar and voiced support for ASEAN's efforts to resolve the crisis through inclusive dialogue. Yoon's remarks reflect Seoul's firmer stance on geopolitical issues compared to previous administrations' more trade-oriented diplomacy. The top office says Seoul's growing push for freedom, peace and prosperity, shown in Yoon's multilateral diplomacy, is rooted in the spirit of Camp David, which South Korea, the US and Japan jointly declared last month in their trilateral summit.
We'll strive to respect ASEAN centrality while simultaneously enhancing common norms, values, and predictability. In the process, we believe we can pursue sustainable, long-term growth and development measures across the entire Indo-Pacific region, including with ASEAN.
In their united approach to engaging with Indo-Pacific countries, particularly in the areas of advanced technology, cyber and maritime defense and development assistance, President Yoon aims to create new norms and build cooperation to uphold a liberal, rules-based order in the region and the world. Oh Soo-young, Arirang News, Jakarta.
President Yoon Suk-yeol has called on China to ensure North Korea's nuclear threat does not become a hurdle in Seoul-Beijing relations, calling for frequent dialogue and respect for global norms to overcome bilateral differences. This came as the South Korean leader met with Chinese Premier Lee Chang in Jakarta following the East Asian summit on Thursday. Amid diplomatic tensions in the Indo-Pacific region stirred by the U.S.-China rivalry, particularly following South Korea and Japan's trilateral summit with the U.S. at Camp David last month, Yoon told Lee that the ROK-U.S. alliance can only get stronger if North Korea's security threat worsens. To overcome differences, President Yoon said he hopes to see more high-level dialogue between the two sides and asked for Beijing's cooperation in holding a trilateral summit with Japan in South Korea. Lee responded positively and said the two neighbors and close trade partners should deepen cooperation to make their relations ever closer. During his trip to Indonesia, President Yoon attended a business roundtable where he highlighted the potential of South Korea-Indonesia economic partnership when it comes to electric vehicles and batteries. Multiple deals were signed in areas that include mobility as well as nuclear power plants and key minerals. Our business correspondent Shin Ha-young has the details.
South Korea and Indonesia are strengthening economic cooperation for the development of future industries. During Thursday's business roundtable with Indonesia, President Yoon Suk-yeol emphasized the high potential for cooperation between the two countries and called for active cooperation. In particular, with both countries striving for carbon neutrality, he expressed hopes for stronger economic ties in the field of nuclear power plants to secure a stable energy supply infrastructure while addressing climate and environmental issues. During the meeting, where around 40 representatives from both countries' economic organizations and businesses attended, the two sides struck 16 deals in 7 different sectors, including nuclear power plants, mobility, and key minerals. The nuclear power plants MOU includes cooperation of information exchange on various nuclear reactors, including small modular reactors, and cooperation on nurturing workforces. Both countries also decided to work closely in mobility operations and establish a production base for electric motorcycles in Indonesia. The country is emerging as an economic partner in terms of supply chains, especially when it comes to key materials for batteries. To create a supply chain for that, they also agreed to cooperate in building a research center for technology development. According to a press release from Seoul's presidential office, the government plans active support for the MOU and aims for tangible results to be seen early. Shin Ha-young, Arirang News.
President Yoon also held talks with the newly appointed Prime Minister of Cambodia, Hun Manet. The two leaders agreed to further expand bilateral trade, which last year reached a record high of around $1 billion thanks to their recently implemented free trade agreement. During the talks, President Yoon asked his Cambodian counterpart to pay attention to South Korean firms seeking to expand their business in Cambodia. In response, Prime Minister Hun Manet vowed to be supportive and expressed hope of expanding cooperation in defense as well as trade of agricultural and livestock products. President Yoon on Friday will have a bilateral summit with Indonesian President Joko Widodo, followed by a cooperation agreement signing ceremony and a joint press conference. With the summit between the leaders of North Korea and Russia likely to take place next week, South Korea's intel agency says Kim Jong-un could make a surprise move by taking a different route than what is widely expected when he travels from Pyongyang to Vladivostok. And a separate media report suggests China will send its vice premier to attend the forum where Kim and Putin will likely meet. Our foreign affairs correspondent Bae Eun-ji reports.
South Korea's intelligence agency has said North Korean leader Kim Jong-un may take an unexpected route when he travels to Russia for a meeting with the country's President Vladimir Putin. The senior spokesperson of the ruling People Power Party said the National Intelligence Service reported this during a parliamentary meeting on Thursday.
There is a possibility that Kim Jong-un could make a surprise move by choosing a different route than what has been revealed by media.
This comes after the New York Times said Monday local time, citing unnamed American and other officials, that Kim would likely travel from Pyongyang, probably by armored train, to Vladivostok, where he would meet with Putin. It was also reported that a delegation of about 20 North Korean officials recently traveled to Vladivostok by train in late August, and then flew to Moscow to plan for Kim Jong-un's upcoming trip. Separately, citing Russian government sources, Japan's NHK News also said the summit between Kim and Putin could take place in Vladivostok. It reported the meeting could take place at the Far Eastern Federal University on an island off central Vladivostok, where the Eastern Economic Forum will be held for 4 days, starting Sunday. It says security has already been tightened there, and that students and others entering the campus have been instructed to take COVID-19 tests. It added that a visit by the two leaders to military facilities in the region is also being considered. Meanwhile, China will reportedly send its vice premier to attend the same forum. Chinese ambassador to Moscow said this to Russia's TASS news agency on Wednesday, without specifying the delegate's name. There are 4 vice premiers in China's State Council. This indicates that the country's leader Xi Jinping will not be there, ending speculation over a possible trilateral summit between the leaders of North Korea, China, and Russia. Peunji, Arirang News.
Despite a recovering semiconductor industry, uncertainties are rising for the South Korean economy due to China's economic woes. That's according to the nation's economic think tank. This amid global oil prices continuing to rally to the point where they could hit $100 per barrel. Our An Sung-jin explains.
Parts of South Korea's economy are recovering as the decrease in exports year-on-year has slowed. Yet external uncertainties are still affecting the overall industry. According to the Korea Development Institute on Thursday, total exports saw a year-on-year decrease in August of 8.4%. Compared to July, when shipments were down 16.4%, last month's figure shows an improvement over recent months. This is mostly attributed to a year-on-year increase in the exports of automobiles, vessels, and machinery. Chip exports also saw an improvement with a year-on-year drop in shipments, shrinking from 42.5% in February to 20.6% in August. However, the recovery in the semiconductor sector was not enough to fuel an overall increase in industry production. Amid fewer working days and a high base effect, production across all industries for July saw a decrease of 1.4%. In particular, production in the mining and industrial sectors, as well as the mechanical components area, saw the biggest drop. Increased economic uncertainties over China's escalating fiscal instability mainly contributed to a drop in business sentiment. Additionally, rising oil prices intensified this after Russia and Saudi Arabia extended their oil production cuts through the end of this year, raising energy prices. Their announcement pushed West Texas Intermediate crude oil to its highest in 10 months, while Brent crude went above $90 a barrel, increasing global market concerns. As long as oil price instability and economic conditions in China prevail, efforts to control consumer price inflation and improve production may be hindered despite some signs of a slow recovery. An Sung-jin, Arirang News.
Today, rival lawmakers at the National Assembly once again questioned the cabinet, this time on the economy, ranging from government's belt-tightening for next year to the budget for the recent Jamboree event. Our political correspondent Lee Si-hoo reports.
The third day of parliamentary questioning of the government focusing on the economy started off with lawmakers pointing out the declining GDP growth rate.
Actual incomes have decreased. How does Mr. Prime Minister evaluate the economy of South Korea?
I want to say that the economy is in a very difficult situation. The global economy cannot freely use fiscal expansion or monetary easing policies as it used to due to high interest rates, high exchange rates, and high prices. In times like these, I think it's very important that our economy doesn't fall into a crisis. And I tell you, we've put emphasis on this.
Prime Minister Han explained that the Yoon administration has made every effort to secure long-term fiscal soundness.
More importantly, in the mid to long term, I would say that we are embracing policies in such a way that we can achieve more sustainable growth, ensuring we stay competitive through 3 major reforms, including one in education.
Part of the administration's plan for sustainability involves tightening the budget. The main opposition Democratic Party, which has asserted the need to increase next year's budget, decried the proposed cut in R&D projects. The Prime Minister assured that innovation relies on the appropriate distribution of support and how efficiently it is used. The ruling People Power Party asked for clarification as to why the budget was slashed for Saemangeum infrastructure projects following the recent fiasco during the World Scout Jamboree held at the reclaimed wetland, to which the Prime Minister replied,
"This is due to the massive tightening of the budget. This has nothing to do with the success of the World Scout Jamboree."
The PPP applauded the government's efforts during the Jamboree event, saying that swift decisions led to a, quote, happy ending.
With efforts made by the whole country, I think we had a happy ending, a successful conclusion. What do you think?
Yes, I totally agree with you. While it is true that there were some difficulties at the beginning, the whole nation, the government, the business community and local governments all worked together to do their best. And I heard from many Jamboree leaders and participants that they were very satisfied.
The PPP also called for the government's proactive promotion of domestic seafood products to help the fishing industry, while the government vowed to continue conducting radioactivity tests and other measures until people feel fully assured about their safety. Lee Si-hu, Arirang News.
Following Japan releasing stored water from the defunct Fukushima nuclear power plant last month, authorities in neighboring South Korea are making efforts to help the fishing industry. These include discount coupons, but more fundamentally, making sure that seafood items are safe. Our Moon Hae-ryun went to find out more.
More than a decade after an earthquake and tsunami damaged the Fukushima Daiichi nuclear plant, Japan began to release treated wastewater into the ocean on August 24th, sparking concern both home and abroad over the safety of seafood caught in these waters. Following that disaster back in 2011, South Korea's fishing industry also suffered for 2 years straight, with production falling as a result of weakened demand. To prevent this from happening again, South Korea's local governments have been setting up events all around the country over the past few weeks to promote the safety of local seafood and encourage consumption.
I'm here at one of the many events to help local fisheries sell products at a discounted price for consumers. This particular sale is supported by the local government of Gangwon-do province in the northeastern area of the country.
Booths from 6 different branches of the National Federation of Fisheries Cooperatives in the region are selling local produce like dried seaweed, scallops and octopus ahead of the national Thanksgiving holiday, Chuseok.
Our number one priority is to promote the safety of our seafood. With Chuseok coming up, we hope that people will have seafood on the table and feel reassured about its safety. We hope that things will return to normal soon, and we're focusing on minimizing the damage to our fishermen.
These discount events have been successful in selling products so far, with many stalls at this event selling out in just an hour.
I wanted to buy everything here, but it all sold out. So I only managed to buy some squid, seaweed and pollock.
People were able to buy products at a 30% discount, and merchants expressed their hope for more events like this.
I hope that regular events like this can be held to revitalize the local economy.
Local governments are also thinking of ways to directly provide financial support for fishermen.
We're currently planning on providing more direct support for fishermen, such as funding the cost of fuel for fishing boats and so on.
On top of discount events, buyers can receive coupons worth up to around 30% of the total amount they've spent at traditional fishery markets this month. This exchange coupon event is usually available during national holidays, such as Chuseok coming up at the end of the month, but will run throughout the entirety of the month this year after the government pledged nearly $30 million to make this happen. Buyers just need to show receipts from their purchases at market stalls at the coupon exchange booth to be issued their coupons. But before local governments can promote their products to consumers, they first need to verify the safety of seafood with radiation detection machines such as this. Every day, this laboratory in Gyeonggi-do district receives hundreds of seafood samples from various local markets and school catering companies before it's sold and served to consumers. These are placed in a gamma-ray spectrometer, which then detects whether the samples are radioactive or not. Results from the detector are recorded and posted on the websites of local markets and schools to ease buyers' and parents' concerns. With transparent and regular sharing of information, discount sales and direct funding for fishermen, local governments hope to lessen the impact the release of treated wastewater has on the South Korean fishing industry. Moon Hae-ryun, Arirang News.
In 2023, South Korea experienced its fourth hottest summer on record. And authorities say it's rare to see monthly average temperatures from June to August all higher than the annual averages. This year is also making headlines globally for record-breaking heat waves and violent rainstorms. Our Shin Se-byuk reports.
The summer of 2023 was the fourth hottest for South Korea. According to data from the Korea Meteorological Administration on Thursday, the nationwide average temperature from June to August this year was 24.7 degrees Celsius. That's a full degree above the norm, ranking the period as the fourth highest on record. Monthly average temperatures for the 3 summer months all surpassed annual averages, a rare occurrence that has happened only 3 times in the past half-century. Precipitation levels were also higher, with total summer rainfall over these months reaching nearly 1,020 millimeters, over 1 meter. That's well above the summer average of 727 millimeters. Despite this higher-than-usual precipitation, there were only 2 more rainy days than usual, indicating more frequent concentrated downpours. Temperature records were also shattered worldwide. Japan experienced its highest summer temperatures in 125 years, while the United States and European cities also witnessed record-breaking highs. In Phoenix, Arizona, the temperature exceeded 43 degrees Celsius for 31 consecutive days, setting a new record for the longest heat wave. Globally, June to August saw the highest ever recorded average surface air temperature of 16.8 degrees Celsius, surpassing the 2019 record by almost 0.3 degrees. In particular, the global average for the month of August was 16.8 degrees, which is 1.5 degrees above pre-industrial levels. That is the not-to-exceed target for slowing climate change set by the 2015 Paris Agreement. So far, the year 2023 is the second hottest on record, just behind 2016. The World Meteorological Organization in its May report said there was a 98% chance that at least one of the next 5 years will be the hottest on record. Shin Se-byuk, Arirang News.
Western parts of the country will be under unseasonable heat for the next few days. Highs in Seoul will be reaching 31 degrees Celsius. With high moisture levels in the air, conditions will feel hotter than the actual readings. For parts of eastern regions where cold easterly winds are blowing, conditions will be a whole lot different. Breezier spells are expected for Daegwallyeong and Gangwon-do province with highs of only 23 degrees. In the meantime, UV ray index will stay in the high to very high range nationwide. To avoid any skin aggravation, make sure to wear your sun protective items such as a hat or sunscreen. Central regions will be under clear skies, while the south will see cloudy spells. Tomorrow's high will be starting off at 20 degrees. And sunny skies will dominate nationwide by the daytime. As for the daily highs, Seoul will peak at 31 degrees, Daejeon 29, Busan and Jeju will be topping out at 28 degrees. And for the remainder of the week, clear skies will take over in Seoul. That's all for now, and here are the weather conditions around the world.
Well, that is all for tonight's newscast. Thank you for watching. We'll be back tomorrow with the most up-to-date news.
Good night.
하나, 둘, 셋.
Hey, Mr. Cupid, who's my way? Make sure you listen to what I say. I may be stupid.